I don't know, 10 million musicians. I don't know how many hundreds of releasing music on Spotify, but I'm the only person who has a podcast that I know of. There's a podcast where I write songs about the guests.
Power to Live More with Joe Dodds.
Welcome to the Power to Live More podcast, all about productivity, organisation, well-being, energy and resilience. I'm Jo Dodds, and I started this show to enable interesting people to share their stories about how they use their power to live more, and by that I mean to do the stuff that they want to do more than the stuff that they need to or should do. It's about creating a life for yourself where you have the energy, health and space to be happy and fulfilled, spending your time as you'd like, whether that be at work, home or somewhere else entirely. That's your choice.
Hello. My name is Ellie Dodds and I am co-presenter, and today Joe's interviewing Jack Stafford. Jack's new album, Deeper, is a series of self-help songs that will help people get perspective on the current corona crisis. The songs are inspired by his own life experiences and mental struggles. From a toyboy lifestyle in Amsterdam that led to a breakdown after his fashion business failed, to living as a nomadic troubadour, visiting 45 countries by bicycle and playing over 700 house concerts in return for a place to sleep. He developed through all these experiences countless self-help books and podcasts and Vipassana meditation. Jack is a documentary songwriter, a modern-day troubadour, writing non-fictional songs, always with a goal to either instruct, educate, or maintain a historical record. His self-help project is the middle piece in a trilogy of Body, Mind, Spirit albums. The body was tackled with his Ayurvedic songs. Jack lives in seclusion in the south of Italy. When not making music, he is an Ayurvedic practitioner, meditation teacher, acro-yoga dilettante, permaculture gardener, racing cyclist, founder of Copywriter Collective, student of metaphysics and Italian representative of the Aetherius Society. Back to the studio.
Today I'm interviewing Jack Stafford. Welcome, Jack. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, how you doing, Joe? Great to be here.
Lovely. So we had a bit of a false start earlier. I had the plumber here. He's now on his way out the door, so we should be okay. Shouldn't be any unexpected noises in the background. Hopefully not, anyway. No. So start by telling us a bit about who you are, what you do, and crucially, where you do it.
Well, I'm in Italy. I'm speaking to you today from my home in Italy.
Okay.
Where I lived here. I was a traveling musician before this, and my girlfriend brought me back to Italy as a souvenir after our adventures around Asia. I was playing house concerts, so I just play in people's living rooms. I got booked through the Couchsurfing network and the warm showers. I toured a lot by bicycle as well, and yeah, so now I'm settled in Italy, living the quiet life.
Wow. That sounds so interesting. I don't know where to start apart from at the beginning, really. I loved in your bio you talked about being an original troubadour or a modern day troubadour or something. And
super troubadour.
Super troubadour. Isn't that a bit ABBA-like? No, that's probably the wrong kind of music, isn't it?
Yeah, I got it.
So, wow. So tell us how this all came about. Did you decide you were going to do this when you left school as a career?
No, I didn't take that class. Was not available. No, I actually worked as a copywriter for 10 years in Amsterdam. So I did the business thing. I was good at it. I had a company, Copywriter Collective. It's still going. So I've done the business thing. I poured all my energy into that. And I also had a fashion business. I was a clothes designer as well. I did suits with a zip, and I had a shop in Amsterdam for them. And I kind of got a bit burnt out. I was doing like many high achievers. I didn't achieve high, but I aimed to be a high achiever, and I worked too hard and I burnt myself out. So, and I went traveling around the world full time, because I was already a musician for that as well. So I was on MTV in America, in Amsterdam and Holland, and I was touring around Europe a lot. So part time as well as holding down the job. Mm-hmm. So, but then I kind of quit all that and I went full time as a traveling musician. I visited 40 countries, drove all around America, across Canada, played every hen house that would have me. And I switched to house concerts because it was easy to get a gig, but hard to get an audience.
Right.
So now I only play online after all of that, because I've played hundreds and hundreds of shows and written hundreds of songs. And now I've switched to just doing, I've actually started my own podcast, which I've just launched.
Right.
So don't mean to be a competitor to you. You've already got, I'm not in the same niche as you, so I'm sure we're not competitors.
We'll be fine. I'm
learning a lot from you, and I look from your lessons. So, but I'm doing where I write a song about every guest. So I combine my music with my songwriting. So after the guest gets the gift of a song afterwards.
I'm feeling like I'm not measuring up already.
What do I get? What do I get after this?
I know. Certainly not a song. Wow. So when you said traveling around, doing concerts through the couch, would you say couch surfing?
Couch surfing is hospitality website.
Yeah. You reminded me of, now I can never remember her name, Neil Gaiman's wife, a musician in America who basically crowdsourced her career through doing sort of similar things. She does a really good TED talk where she talks about how she used to be one of those performers where they stand still all day, dressed in silver or whatever in the middle of London.
Statue, yeah.
And then she ended up going and basically staying with people when she was traveling around, giving concerts and so on. And basically her fans put her up. And what's her name? I'll have to remember to put in the show notes, but she's Neil Gaiman's wife, if that helps anyone who's listening. But is it something, I'd never heard of it until she talked about it. You obviously travelled around a lot doing that. Was it something you'd come across before? Did it just happen? Was it a plan or not? How did that all?
Yeah, it's a big thing also in Germany as well. You kind of, because when you're touring, often you can play on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, but the Monday,
Yes.
Tuesday, and the Wednesday are dead nights. But everyone has 20 friends in a living room. So you just fill in those dates with house concerts. And sometimes the house concerts pay much better than the gig shows, and people listen. They're sitting, it's a listening room. There's no distractions. Whereas if you're playing in a bar, you can just really be background music. So,
yes, yeah.
But pre-COVID, obviously now...
not quite the same, is it? Yes, actually, I've participated on the other end. It wasn't in our house, but there's a band called not a band. What do they call themselves? A chorale called the Spooky Men from Australia, and they toured England, and they happened to have a free date between one place and London, and we were in the middle, and somebody locally said, "Come and play here," and they said, "Well, we will if you can put us up." So they basically asked us on the Facebook group who'd put them up, and I had two spooky men living in my house for the night. So I have come across it, the opposite side of it.
But isn't you're traveling through, you're traveling vicariously, no?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe I'll have to, get good at writing songs and go off and have a go at doing all that myself. So you ended up in Italy, and you're, aside from the current pandemic issues, in one place now. That must be quite a contrast given how much traveling you did.
Yeah, well, I do everything to excess, and then you find you move through life quicker. You burn through your desires, and then you just can move on to the next thing, and you get through life much quicker. You get to the end.
Yeah. I'm not sure everyone's aspiring to do that so quickly, but
I don't mean that you live your life quick. I don't mean that you live less, you die quicker. You just get to the next lesson quicker, because life is a series of lessons, and if you don't learn that lesson, it keeps repeating. So a lot of people are just staying home after school every day.
Yes, yeah. So one of the questions I ask people who come on here that are doing something quite unusual is sort of how you sort of turned what you really wanted to do into some sort of money-making sort of business type scenario. Some people come on who've got very traditional experiences and businesses that everybody sort of understands, and then there's other people like yourself where it's out of a lot of people's experiences. Tell us a bit about that transition into now what you're doing.
Well, it's happened many times. The latest time now is with this Podsongs, and there's 1,100,000 podcasts, and I don't know, 10 million musicians. I don't know how many hundreds of releasing music on Spotify, but I'm the only person who has a podcast that I know of. There's a podcast where I write songs about the guests. So because I did to promote my last album, Deeper, I worked with a podcast agent who connected us. And so I started doing lots of podcasts, and then I thought, well, I'm really enjoying this. This is kind of a passion. Talking about myself is great. So I said, well, I can combine the two. I should have my own podcast, and I write biographical songs anyway. I'm a troubadour. I write about the places I've been, the people I've met. I've written many songs about, interesting people, just to have more material, because once you've written about yourself and the girls, it's not much else to write about. So I just kind of like combined these. It's obvious once it's there, it stares you in the face. Why didn't I think of this before? Why didn't I interview people and write songs about them? It's kind of obvious now, but it took me a long time to get here.
I can see why, because it's not something I would have thought was obvious, but
yeah.
So how does that process work then? So I'm thinking, my podcast, I book people ahead. I don't know them at all until I turn up, 10 minutes before we start recording, and here we are. Here's the interview. How does that work when you're writing a song about that person?
Well, I'm doing 3 episodes a week, so that's 12
Wow.
12 songs a month. That's an album a month, 156 songs a year. And I have a virtual assistant. I had one from when I had my copywriting business in the Philippines, and she finds guests for me. So she's messaging every guest from all the top podcasts, Joe Rogan, London Real, etc., all the thousands of people I've asked to be on it. And so then they get interested. They say, yeah, I'll come on, because you're going to write a song about me. I've never been asked. No one's ever offered to write a song about me. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So I've got, really famous people, famous professors, this kind of podcast level, not celebrities, but people who are, have 100,000 followers on Twitter, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so they're very interesting. They've all written books. They've written psychology professors, scientists, lawyers, politicians. So they're all different. So they've all written a book. And so I can write a song about the book. So that's quite easy. I don't really have to search for the inspiration.
And when do you do it in terms of your process?
Straight after the interview.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You have to do it while the iron is hot and you're stimulated. Otherwise, it's you're never, it's either going to take an hour to do it or 20 if you leave it later.
Mm-hmm. And what about that whole inspiration thing? So, some people talk about needing to wait for inspiration to strike, and whether that be, writing songs, writing books, creating anything. And then, there's a whole host of advice and books and everything else about, just create that opportunity and just get on with it, because, that's how it works. You don't wait for inspiration, otherwise it never happens, sort of thing.
Sure.
As you say, you're sort of doing that straight away. But I mean, I'm thinking, I love talking to my podcast guests, and it's a really great opportunity. If I knew I had to write a song at the end of it every time, it might make it slightly more stressful and slightly less enjoyable.
Yeah, but I've written hundreds of songs, so
that's what you do, isn't it? It's not what I do.
As one of my guests said, what is ordinary to you is amazing to other people, and that's the basis of podcasting.
Yes. And how did you sort of start writing songs in the first place?
I was in a band when I was about 18, so I was just kind of had to write them for the band. So, yeah, just kind of gradually happened.
Yes.
I'm not when I was young or anything. So,
yeah. So, what did your day look like normally? So you've just introduced podcasting into it and writing writing songs. Is that what you would normally be doing anyway? Even if you weren't interviewing people, you'd be just writing songs, she says, as if it was just the sort of thing.
Well, before I started Podsongs in the summer, my energy was a lot more fragmented. So I'd do different things. I'd work on some writing or another project, or I'd do on the garden, or I'd go for a cycle ride, or my energy is very dispersed. But I've really, since I've pushed all my energies down one channel now, I'm really experiencing success because I'm putting all my energies into one thing. And that boat is going a lot faster.
And how did you make that happen? It's something that is quite difficult to to do exactly what you just said, that, you know, a lot of us tend to do this and that and have 5 things on the go at once and all that sort of thing. How did you get to just be doing this one thing?
Well, I was convinced that it's going to be successful, and if I just did one episode a week and I had time to keep going on all my other habits and diversions, I would not be able to do it. It would be a lot harder if I just ditch everything else and focus on completely on this one thing. It's also a lot easier because you can eliminate other distractions, and you don't realize how much, because I've lived from work from home as a writer and a musician for 20 years, and you can disperse so much time by, you know, stuff, homework in the house, cleaning, fixing your garden, you know, doing all 101 different things, and also self-improvement practices, meditation, yoga. But when you really say, okay, this is going to work, I have to do this, I'm really going to work around the clock on it.
Yes.
Then it's much easier because you're convinced it's going to work. So if you're not, if it's like, oh, well, I'm doing my embroidery business, and I've got this, I'm doing a podcast, and I'm also trying to learn the piano, and I'm all, you know, it's all these different things. But if everything's pushed in, if all the oars are in the water and pulling in the same direction, you know, I'm going to learn piano because I need to be better on the pod songs. I'm going to get articulation lessons because I need to be better on this. I'm going to get a better computer because it's also for pod songs. Everything is, all the oars are rowing, and then you pick up speed, you know.
And so, throwing yourself all into that, how do you then sort of integrate that with the rest of your life? So, you know, you were talking about getting distracted by life. Now you're being very focused. How do you sort of stop doing that and do life again, or do you not?
Well, it's a curve. So in the initial 6 months, 1 year, you need to do it. You need to just sacrifice everything. But then inevitably, even doing 3 episodes a week, I'm still, and writing songs, you know, I get into a routine. You know, Monday we're in the studio recording all the songs. Tuesday I re-sing, do a few interviews. I'm finished on the weekend, you know. So, you know, once it's just that huge learning curve, getting up to speed and all that stress, and then afterwards it's it's when you're rowing a boat, it picks up momentum, and then you glide. And so
And so
sacrifice.
So what does the end sort of product look like? So you've got your podcast, you write the song, and then is the song part of the podcast when it goes out as well?
Yep, it's at the end of the show. So that we say goodbye to the guests, and then the song is magically out of the ethers appears.
So it makes it look like you've just written it like in 3 seconds.
I in the first episode I was going to be like, but people want to hear. I'm going to talk for 2 minutes about how I write the lyrics, or how I was inspired, and then I'm going to introduce the different instruments in the song. And I did this for 1 episode, and people told me, I wasn't really that interested. just wanted to hear the song, really. So in the end, I've just cut everything out, and it's wham bam.
Yes, yeah.
And people are happier. So I find that we all have these grandiose ideas of how it should be, how the castle should be, and then really people just want it simple. So
yes, yeah. And did you say it becomes then an album in the end as well?
Every month I release an album. I reach 12 songs, just because on Spotify and it's easier to sell an album for 10 euros, £10.
Yeah.
But it's a continuous process. So they're not really albums, but it's just a way to monetize it.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. It's just like, so when I regularly talk to my guests about, you know, you're doing something that you didn't intend to do when you were at school because it didn't exist, sort of thing. And, you know, just thinking back to, you know, I did music O level and music A level, and not that I was ever any good at writing songs or composing or anything. But, you know, there wasn't anyone really there that was thinking they'd go away and create songs and stick them out on technology that didn't yet exist.
Well, there's probably a podcast school in the Polytechnic now. Podcast lessons, so that would never have.
Yeah, but you just think, you know, then we were talking about, you know, vinyl, and because I am that old, and you know, and there was only one way of doing everything, and now how many different ways there are to get that stuff out that we wouldn't have even contemplated.
Oh yes, it's incredible. I miss vinyl. It'd be much better, but anyway.
Yeah. Well,
but the costs that for me are dramatically. If I had to print CDs and send them out, I couldn't be doing this project without Spotify. I can upload my podcast to Anchor.fm, and I can upload to The Orchard, who distribute it to Spotify, iTunes, everywhere. I do it overnight. So, I'm a product of the times with this project as well.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Very exciting. So talk a bit about how you organize yourself, how you make sure you get done what you need to get done.
Well, I have these 7 rolling tasks, and I have them on a block of wood, so I can when I move one, they slide down, so they're on an angle. So I move one to the top, because I have these 7 keep repetitive tasks that you keep doing. Whatever, they were different for every person, but so I'm always work on the top thing, and then when that's done, I move that to the bottom, so that I'm always. This cycle of tasks is very important, because so that I don't my mind is not fragmented into 100 different directions, because these tasks are repetitive. They're different for everyone. It could be empty inbox, and then you do that one, and then you write the book, and then that one goes, so write the article. And you do, if you want to be successful, I think you have to have these repetitive tasks, like write blog article, and then you've done it, and then you move to the bottom. But if it's too big, write a whole book. It's not going to. It's too. You have to focus on the one thing. But in this day and age, when we're all fighting email and answering things, then you need to cycle through these tasks.
Yes, yeah. The whole thing about repetitive tasks and creating those sorts of structures, I think, is so important. I was just talking to a client of mine earlier, and we were talking about his blogging and podcasting process, and we were trying to sort of work out the pattern so that it happens as it needs to every month, with ease, without any friction, because it's just set in that way. And it's so much easier when you have things, as you say, that just, you do this, then you do that, and then you do that. It just makes things happen. I always talk about like creating a vacuum as well, that if you can create like a structure that is there, then you have to fill the gaps, because nature gets you to fill those gaps, sort of thing. And
exactly, yeah,
it's so helpful as well. And what about technology for sort of getting things done? You obviously, you're benefiting from technology in terms of what you do. Oddly, almost, when we talk about being a super troubadour, but in those days, they'd have had their, what did they play? Mandolins or something, and that would have been it. That would have been the extent of their technology. You've obviously got the modern world creating a whole new way of being. And then you've just talked about wood. do you use technology outside of the obvious that you've talked about already, or not?
No, I tried Trello, and it was just, it becomes a place you dump things to do. So
and then ignore them. Yeah,
it's better to have it. So it's with my tasks. I don't include the daily tasks, but it could be make artwork, record the song, write the song, re-sing, edit the episode, upload the song, find more guests. So these kind of things. I don't include the tasks that you have to do every day, like interviews and researching the guests and social media. Don't write these things down, but just have what's the main thing. If I had to do one thing today, this has to be done. Just do that, because you spend too much time dispersing your energy, emptying your inbox or things like that. Really just focus on one thing. Get what's gonna if I just had to do this one thing, what will get me the most results? Give me the most bang for my buck. What's that? And concentrate on that. And then if you have time, do the other things,
You sound like you're very strategic in your thoughts and sort of action taking. So you talked about working with an agency to get you onto podcasts, and to find guests, and you're, as you say, very focused on what's the one thing that you need to do. Do you think that's something that you've always done? It sounded a bit like that when you were talking about your sort of previous business career. Is it something you've always done, or is it something that you've sort of learned as you've gone?
Well, I was splashing around a lot in the water and wasting a lot of energy. Like I toured around America. I've had more energy than strategy. And then, I just would. It's silly when you're a musician. You're supposed to tour concentrically. You're supposed to have a base and then tour out locally and build up a fan base. But I just, I had this huge energy, and it just sent me off on the road for a couple of months, and then without thinking, engaging the brain. So no, this strategicness is really only becoming because I have this clear idea now with Podsongs, and a podcast is a very easy thing. It's everyone, what you have to get the listeners to go to the Apple, download the podcast, subscribe, write the review, everything, the whole system is there. So, and it's very easy like that. So no, I'm not a great strategic thinker, and it's just I'm benefiting now because I really want this to work.
Yes, yeah, but I guess it does also then come down to routines, doesn't it? That's perhaps the difference. It's when we talk about doing, the most important thing or just doing one thing. One of the beauties of doing something like a podcast is that it is the same each time. It's just different. If you see what I mean.
Yeah, and I get better at it. It's just and every time the guests get more well known, so the guests get more and more followers, and the followers of the guests will bring the audience.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I just think back, I've been doing this podcast for quite a time now, and I just think how at times it can be quite painful to begin with because the process wasn't in place, and it kept being tweaked and it kept changing. I mean, I use Asana for my list of things to do for each podcast, and the amount of times that I changed the process and then had to go and change all the ones that I'd already got set up with people listed against them to make sure that I got all of those steps done. But I haven't changed it now for, I don't know, probably 18 months because I honed it sufficiently that it just runs. So it's interesting.
If only we'd studied this at the Polytechnic, it would have been so much better.
Exactly.
Saved ourselves a hell of a lot of learning curve.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, probably people are studying it now, and in 5 years' time they'll still be having this discussion. They'll have moved on and found something else difficult.
Yeah.
All the benefit of this. So before we do interviews, I asked my guests for some questions that I could potentially ask, and you asked or suggest that I ask you how has I can even say it. Ayurveda. Oh, I've said it wrong again.
Ayurveda. I just think like Darth Vader. Are you Darth Vader? Are you?
Yeah, you see. That's the trouble. I don't know about you. I get these words in my head that I think I'm going to say wrong, and then I can never say them right. But so, how has it helped you? It's something.
Oh, that's been great. Yeah, I mean, that's really helped me physically, mentally also. But it's a holistic health program. I studied to be a practitioner, and I've learned so much from it. It's how to eat seasonally, how to live, the types of foods, how different activities can put you in balance and out of balance. And yeah.
Is that the one where you should eat different things depending on your body type or something? Is that?
Yeah, there's a dosha. It's better to do it seasonally or unless you have a real imbalance. There's Vata, Pitta, Kapha. There's the different doshas. So it's the hot and cold people, the dry, moist people, the heavy, light. So the different doshas have these 20 different qualities, and you can balance yourself. So with opposites, really fascinating. It should be taught in school. It's fantastic.
And where has it come from? And where did you find it?
I found it when I was living in Amsterdam, but it's originally an Indian science of life. It's like Chinese medicine, yin and yang, but it's very, very good. Yeah, I recommend people study about it. It's too much to go into now, but I have written an album about it, which explains it very clearly. And that's on Spotify, and people can listen to songs because they're in sutras originally, so in Sanskrit sutras, because people remembered it in poetry form in the old days.
Yes.
So you go to the doctor and he'd recite the poem to remember how to treat you and what medicine to give you.
That's really cool. So that's just begging a question. What's the most unusual thing that you've written a song about, and what haven't you written songs about yet that you will?
With the Podsongs, I mean, it's just whoever I get on. I've just, I've written songs about urine therapy. That was one of the latest ones, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
Logotherapy is a psychiatrist. Shane Claiborne, but he's a Christian in America, about beating guns into garden tools. Mouth breather, that was about nose breathing.
Oh, yeah. I've listened to a podcast about that recently. I'll have to listen to yours to get the song version.
Was it Patrick McEwen? He's on every.
Yes, he was on. Yeah, he was on Dr. Chatterjee's podcast in the UK. So yes, that was.
Yeah, I wrote a song for him called Mouth Breather. So yeah, and I interviewed Iyad El Baghdadi, who was a protester in after the Arab Spring. He's from Saudi Arabia, but who's exiled to Norway, called Arab Tyrant Manual. Sean Carroll, a physicist, Something Stay Deeply Hidden. Rupert Sheldrake, about one free miracle to explain everything.
It's amazing. And is there a connection between music and Ayurveda?
It was in sutra form. It was in poetic form, so that's the way they remembered it. But no, not really. But with my songs, I make songs and describe lyrics, describe Agni and Ama and the doshas and things like that. So just so I can explain it to people in an easy to understand way. You know, a pop song is a 3-minute explanation of anything. So
yes, yeah. So I was checking out your website when I was arranging to speak to you, and I saw a video of people from all sorts of places sort of singing your song, and you said you were supposed to record a video for the song and you couldn't, and you got people involved to do the video for you, in effect. How did you do that?
It was that was the first lockdown back in March. And it was I just asked all my friends and fans from all around the world to lip sync the song for me. And because they it's a lot to ask people to memorize and lip sync a 3-minute song, so I divided them up in different verses. And how can I divide them up? Well, I'll get the youngest people to sing the first verse, etc.
Yeah.
Finish with the old people, and it's a song about worry, so it gives a really nice effect that people sing about how they're worrying themselves to death as they age through the video.
Yes. Yeah, and I think it was really effective. There was a bit where they'd been, as you say, sort of lip syncing, and then it sort of flashed up and the person didn't sing, and I thought, I wonder if they'd think, a bit of a swizz, I didn't get to sing. And then I realised that you were doing it in time to the beat of the music. It was going black and then showing somebody, and then go black and showing somebody. And I thought, no, that works really well with the song. And then
thank you.
They did come back in and do their lip syncing as well.
And a lot of them are Italian, so I had to cut a lot of them out because they didn't lip sync very well.
But we won't tell them that.
No. Some people didn't make the cut. It was 100 people, so yeah, it's worth background worry. Go check it out on YouTube.
Yes, yeah, definitely worth a look. So you talked about Ayurveda already. How else do you make sure you keep yourself healthy and energized to do the work that you do?
At the moment, not so much, but before I did a lot of cycling and yoga and meditation and pranayama. I got into after Ayurveda, when I was in India, I got into metaphysics, which is kind of the yogis. They're like a real yogi is like not doing downward facing dog all day. They're doing the proper yogic practices. Our pranayama, mantra, concentration. These are this is real yoga. So I got into that, but in a very roundabout way. I was getting all these synchronicities about Kundalini when I was in India, and I didn't know what Kundalini was. Do you know what Kundalini is?
It's a form of yoga, I think, because I keep hearing people tell me that they're doing it. Yeah. It's actually
the energy at the base of your. It's the energy that you use in all your body, but the 99% of it is at the base of your spine.
Right.
And that you've got enough down there, just like a nuclear bomb down there. So when you can raise Kundalini up Sushumna up the spine, then you raise it through the chakras,
right.
And you raise it up to the crown chakra, and then you become enlightened and cosmic consciousness, and then ascension. So that's what the Buddha did, and Jesus, And so all the major religions, they talk about this in a kind of secretive way, because if you raise Kundalini, if you do a lot of Kundalini yoga, you can paralyze yourself. You know, it's easy to take the genie out of the bottle, but you should never bring up what you can't put back down. So, you know, if you do all these pranayama practices and mantra, you clean all your nadis and you accelerate your energies, and you can have these cosmic, you know, these incredible experiences. But it's very dangerous. So anyway, it's a lot to take in, I'm sure. But so this Kundalini you all have it, and you don't get reborn. You know, you can be like the Buddha and ascend when you've raised Kundalini and can control it and put it back down many times. So,
wow.
Yeah, not something to go into on a but you did ask.
Yes, I did. Yes, well, I'll be aware of that in a different way now then, because I keep seeing people talking about Kundalini yoga, but it sounds like that's perhaps a sort of popular term for sort of what they're doing rather than what you've just described.
Yeah, I guess everything's been westernized. So, but really, yeah, I mean, it's mantra, it's holding your breath. So that because we take in prana through our breath, obviously, but if you stop that breath, then the prana comes in through the chakras, and that's pranayama means purification of the chakras and it's cleaning of the body and pushing in, because when you meditate, you kind of still the waters, you know, you meditate so that you're not so, you know, batshit crazy and stressed out, you know. But that's not, you're not pumping up the wattage in the body, you know, you're not improving anymore, you know, you're not with the pranayama and the mantra, with the mantra you spin your aura when you say it in Sanskrit, because we're all sound, you know, we're all sound vibration, so you're actually spinning your aura and throwing off sankharas. So it's magic, it's a magical technique if you do it right, and if you do it enough, hundreds of thousands of millions of times, you would have very fantastic mystical experiences, none of which I have had, just purely speaking from the theory. But so when these yogis get these superpower, you know, they can walk on water and you know, leave the body and do astral projection and have these incredible skills and powers, because they've done these very intensive practices and they have the concentration abilities to concentrate on a leaf for 8 hours without moving a muscle, you know. So these are the people, I don't know which culture that it's in, like the people who sit on posts for like 3 weeks and things like that. It's the yogic practices, but these in this age now, we're into the Aquarian age. Service is the way to go. You're not supposed to do these practices, because the real yoga is karma yoga now, service to others. If you go into a monastery for years, you're very selfish, you're just trying to develop yourself. And in days gone by, maybe that was the order of the day, but now we're in the age of service to others. You know, you have to go among the people and be of service. If you don't do any deep breathing exercises, if your next door neighbor needs help, you know, you can do it in the morning, because you can do, you know, it does help you, but you shouldn't devote your life to these practices.
Getting very deep.
It's suddenly got very deep in here.
So I don't know which direction this next question is going to take us, but you said to also ask you about the Aetherius Society, which I've seen again in your bio, so I know it's something that you're involved with. So what is it?
We're going deeper.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, when I was in India, came through this. I expected to find, you know, if you're going to find a guru, you expect to find, you know, someone in robes and, you know, maybe levitating off the ground, or in India, you know, it will be nice, you know. But I've this day and age, I found him through YouTube in America, and he's a American yogi who's never been to India, but he studied all these practices, and so he's very advanced. But he's just, you know, this big black guy, like looks like a quarterback, and talking about all these Sanskrit terms. And so he was doing mantras since he was 3 years old, and he's very developed. But anyway, his master, he introduced me to the Aetherius Society, which is a Yorkshireman, Dr. George King, who is now passed on. But he was So I'm in India learning it from an American via YouTube about the Aetherius Society in England, it's a tiny organization. I think it's a couple of thousand people, and they're based in Fulham Road in London. And they've also got one in America. That's where Dr. King went as well. So yeah, the master of yoga for this age is a Yorkshireman,
right?
Which is pretty crazy. I mean,
of course, you say I come from Yorkshire. I just knew that was going to be the case.
But yeah, I think I had to go to India to learn to be, because if you're told that, you just wouldn't accept it. It's just too far out.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, it's just crazy. So he founded the Aetherius Society. So he did like 10 years of intense yoga practices. So he, imagine being able to sit down for 16 hours without moving a muscle. I mean, that's just the basics. So
I can't even imagine that.
yeah, and then holding your breath for incredible amounts of time. And so you put incredible pressure on this Kundalini, and then you can rise it up. And then he did it enough times, he became a master of yoga. So it's basically a Superman for us, because you get all these superpowers. I can't remember what they're called in Sanskrit, but all these ones you've read about, levitation, or being able to leave the body at will and go to the other realms and things like that. So and so he could communicate with even higher people, and he got all these teachings, and which I've read and studied, and they're fantastic. They go beyond what I'd read in these Sanskrit teachings and these ancient Indian texts. They it says the same thing, it explains, so it's all in the same tradition, but then it goes beyond. It tells you what happens after ascension. Mm-hmm. And so it's a lot to go into now, but you can check from the Aetherius website, and if you're interested, you can study yourself. But I'd definitely go with an open mind, because it is a lot to take in.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so last couple of questions, and I'm very interested to the answer to this one. So on those days when it goes horribly wrong, when you have a bad day, how do you deal with it?
Well, I have my sliding tasks, so just move up to the next one. So if I'm not inspired, I'll just do some database work, and if I'm not, if my energy's up and I'm feeling creative, I'll do the other song. So you just shift into, because all the tasks because I'm a one-man band, I've got a researcher and two musicians I work with. Yeah. So there's always, if I'm feeling, really down, I could just sit in bed and copy off, and check Twitter feeds of potential guests, and if I'm really up for it and engaged, I'll write an amazing song, or I'll just do some mundane, or, re-singing. So always working on something, but just to suit your mood a little bit, because I'm not in full control of my mental faculties.
Mm-hmm. So very much about sort of energy still. Yeah. And what about those days where you get to live more, and that's how I describe, or what I describe as getting to do more of the things that you want to do and less of the stuff that you don't want to do? What do those days look like for you?
Well, I'm very isolated here in the south of Italy, and I don't have many friends. So the people I speak to on the podcast, I pour my energy into that. And also we're in lockdown, so we can't go out. So I'm very limited. So I don't have those free times. I'm not allowed out of the house. So
no, it's gone. Lockdown's quite hard down there at the moment, isn't it? We've got friends in Naples, and they're not quite as low down as you, are they? But
oh wow, yeah, inside the city of Naples.
They're somewhere near NATO, wherever that is. So they're not far from.
Because people in the cities are definitely struggling more. We're in the countryside more, so we can go out for, sneak out for walks and things. But there's not much. They have to drive to go to places like that. So I think they're allowed to walk the dog, and that's about it. And that's just down the street, sort of thing. So it was awful, wasn't it? And then it seemed like everything was fine for ages, and then it all sort of kicked off again, didn't it? Yeah, it's been rough for the Italians. Also losing a lot of money, because they don't have a lot of savings. So it's been very difficult with the lockdown. I think one of my guests was one of the authors of the Great Barrington Declaration. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, check it out. Great Barrington Declaration. He's an epidemiologist, so he knows a few things from Harvard University, and he signed it together with a university professor from Oxford, one from Stanford, and they just say that the lockdown measures cause greater harm in terms of economics and suicides and
right, yeah,
teenage depression and everything. And so the
Mm-hmm.
lockdown measures are causing more harm than good. And so these epidemiologists came out and signed this declaration. So I wrote a song called for him, What's Pandemic Protocol, which is because pandemics are, they're not new, and all these governments have protocols, but they kind of threw them out the window when the media got COVID between its teeth.
Yes, yeah. So it's been really interesting talking to you.
It's been different.
Yeah, I was going to say probably the most unusual podcast interview I've done so far, with wide-ranging topics and a load of places to scurry off to listen to the songs and find out more about your guests on your podcast. So thank you, Jack. It's been great talking to you. Tell people how they can find out more about you and get in touch.
Great, podsongs.com, or just search through all the channels for Jack Stafford, and I'm on there.
Brilliant. Thanks for your time today.
All right, Joe. My pleasure.
All this information is available in the show notes. If you go to powertolivemore.com / in this case 203, then you'll find them there. And this week I just want to talk about outsourcing. It's the week's topic within the theme for April of Share, which is my fourth fundamental. And we've talked quite a lot about outsourcing at recent Power to Live More Calm Gold calls. We started talking about automation and about getting systems and processes streamlined and able to be automated. And then that naturally led on to talking about outsourcing. And it's something that many people are interested in, but I don't think many people do, for a number of reasons. I think one of them is finding the right people to outsource to. I think also people often think it's too expensive and not yet possible within a smaller business before you've grown enough to be able to afford to outsource. Although I would argue potentially you need to outsource in order to grow your business, because then you can outsource the things that you're either not so good at or don't need to be doing in order to give you time to really focus on the things that you're really good at and will really help you to drive your business forwards. And I think other people don't end up outsourcing because it does take a bit of effort to set up in the first place. I've already mentioned the importance of setting up processes and streamlining them so that you've got something that's streamlined and working really well before you then outsource it, because obviously you don't want to outsource a sort of bloated system that's going to cost you a lot more money than you need to be paying because it's a sort of a convoluted system. Having said that, if you're outsourcing to somebody who really knows what they're doing in relation to whatever that task is, then sometimes you don't need to create a really slick process because the person that you're giving the job to will be able to do that on your behalf. So it is very much dependent on who you're going to outsource to, what you're outsourcing and why you're outsourcing it. And I've talked many times in the past about the fact that I used to have a real bottleneck in my podcast publishing process. Well, in fact, I had a few. The main one that caused me no end of issues and meant that I didn't always publish a regular podcast was writing my show notes. I didn't want to do them, didn't like doing them. It took up too much of my time and really caused issues. And so I went out and did a bit of Googling, which is what I call my superpower. And I found an organisation called Lidwell Writing Services who have been writing my podcast show notes ever since. And they do a brilliant job and they just get on with it. I don't have to do very much other than record the podcast and, do those bits. And then they write all the show notes and I then just publish those on my website. And in fact, I don't publish them, or I press the button at the end. But the main bulk of the work getting those show notes onto the website is actually done by my VA. So I'm outsourcing that bit of it as well. And actually she now takes on the final editing of the podcast and has been doing that for the last, I think, probably a couple of years now, which again has taken another delay out of the process and created a natural deadline for this, my outro, which again I've talked about before. Sometimes the podcast didn't quite get published
on Friday mornings like I like to publish it, because I hadn't done the outro and then I had to get on and edit the podcast and everything else. As soon as I outsourced that final part of the process, it gave me a deadline of a Wednesday night, or in this case early Thursday morning, to get the outro done for my VA, because she can't do her job unless I've done my job. So there's a whole host of reasons why outsourcing can be really useful to you. So from that experience, those examples I've shared with you, it can be about freeing you up to do the things that you do best. It can be about taking some of the blocks out of your processes and getting stuff done on a more consistent, regular basis. It might be getting your work done better by somebody who's better at that bit of it than you are. And then there's that whole opportunity cost thing, which is that by taking out some of that work that you don't need to be doing, that you can pay somebody else to do, that gives you more quality time for your own part of your business. So the work that's only for you to do, the work that you do the best, the work that helps you to grow your business and work really well with your clients. So if you're not outsourcing already, then have a think about the sorts of things that are either holding you up in your business, or that you're doing that you don't enjoy, or where you know you're not the best person to be doing that job, and think about the next steps that you can take in order to outsource that to somebody who is the best person for that job. If you'd like to explore how you might be able to outsource some of the tasks that you have within your business, then why not book in a call with me? If you go to powertolivemore.com/calm call, CALMCALL, calm call, then we can book in a time to have a no obligation chat and see how I might be able to help you. Again, the show notes for this week's show are at powertolivemore.com/203, and we look forward to speaking to you next week.
Use your power to live more.